So, Max, we are here to talk about the most reluctant convert. What for you led you into a place professionally, because you've done so much in the space of C.S. Lewis, where you wanted to start telling his stories?
Uh, yes. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. Um, I've been working with C.S. Lewis in terms of stage productions for about 20 years. Uh, I've been aware. I'm an adult convert to Christianity and been aware of Lewis since my 20s, particularly with the Screwtape Letters. But Lewis is a bit of a challenge to read, and you want to put in the work. And I wasn't motivated to put in the work until it was time. We made the decision to do stage adaptations. And of course, if you're going to do that, then you have to dig in really deep because, going from the page to the stage. And so I found myself transcribing his work, really trying to understand his syntax, his sense of humor, why he goes this way as opposed to that way, and telling a story. And what I found is I could never get to the bottom of him. And so we did our first production was a Screwtape Letters, which was for us at that time was an enormous hit. It really put us on the map. And then after that, we began work with the Great Divorce, and then as a result of the Great Divorce and Screwtape Letters, we decided to work on The Most Reluctant Convert.
And Max, when I look at C.S. Lewis's work, and I've read so much of it, I mean, so many of us are familiar with it because not only is Lewis multi-generational, right? He has appeal with all kinds of different age groups and demographics, but also, as your work shows, his work transcends mediums, right? Audio, written word, stage productions, and even film. Why is it, do you think, that so many people from all facets of life are drawn to C.S. Lewis's writing and reflections on faith?
Well, I think first and foremost, he's one of the great writers of the English language. Of all time. It's not a stretch for me to say, based on what I know of him and the constellation of ideas, that he's up there with Shakespeare and Milton and Shelley, the great writers of the English language. He had a steel trap mind. He read everything from the Greeks to the moderns. He had a steel trap mind that could recall everything he read, and then this amazing ability to translate it into extraordinary prose and speech, and most of it was done from the perspective of Christ as Lord, which gives him a unique take that you get almost nowhere else in terms of contemporary great contemporary writers. And it's interesting to me. I think Christianity Today did a survey about 10, 15 years ago about what are of all its readers, of all its subscribers, other than the Bible, what were the most influential books in your life? And I think 8 out of the 10 were Lewis books.
Wow.
Yeah, not surprisingly, in light of what we're talking about here. And Michael, I want to come to you in a moment. But before we do, when we talk about different mediums, you have the film, right? Which the film, The Most Reluctant Convert, the untold story of C.S. Lewis, dives into Lewis's story and who he was, right? I mean, a lot of us, we know the writings and we get a sense of who he was, but you chose to really take this and move it into that direction. Why did you say, okay, the film is the way to go? This is a way for us to teach people about him.
Yeah. Well, the film was a little bit of a reaction to COVID because we had we're trained as theater people, and the skill sets of theater are far different than the skill sets of film. But we had been in communication with Norman Stone, the British director, the Scottish director, about making a film of The Most Reluctant Convert. Primarily, it was doing well as a stage play, and we thought it could be adapted to film. But this was in late 2019, early 2020, and we saw this as a project for 2 or 3 years down the road. But when COVID hit in March of 2020, and that was such a shock, and at first it was, 2 weeks, 15 days to flatten the curve. And I thought, well, what am I going to do for the next 2 weeks? Um, and then 2 weeks became 2 months, became almost 2 years, right? And so when we recognized that it was going to be a long shutdown, and for us, that means we're live theater people. We need audiences in a small space, concentrated in a small space, and so we were shut down. So we were doing 2,000 tickets a week to zero, and that zero number was coming up every week. And we thought, what are we going to do? And so Norman came to us and said, the British film industry is going to open up in August of 2020. And if we're ready to go, we'd already been working on the script. So if you're ready to go, he can get a crew and a cast pretty quickly, because nobody had been working, and get it at pretty competitive rates. But we had to make a decision quickly. And so I got our board together, and we decided to go ahead and get the film in the can, and then figure out post-production and figure out distribution later. And so on August 31st, I got on a plane as big as Air Force One with far fewer people on it, and flew to Heathrow, and we started. We transferred the stage play script into a movie. The stage play was one set, one actor, 90 minutes. The movie was 18 different locations in and around Oxford. 15 actors, 3 actors playing Lewis, cast for Tolkien, for Barfield, for Lewis's mom and dad, for Kirkpatrick, Warney, and had 190 extras, 270 costumes. So it was really an expansion of the stage play.
Michael, as you know, film speaks to people in ways that a whole lot of other mediums don't speak to people, right? It's an opportunity to share the gospel and to share truth in a unique way. And I think C.S. Lewis, a film about C.S. Lewis, adds another layer to that, because it's appealing to the intellectual side as well as the entertaining side. So tell us a little bit about your perspective on bringing this film into the Pure Flix family of offerings.
Well, I think you're right. Movies are unique in that sense. And, I always go back and say Jesus told stories, right? He did parables, right? But kind of the modern day parable is film and television. And what a great story to tell is C.S. Lewis's life, going from, started as a boy as a Christian, became an atheist, and then back to Christianity. It's an incredible tale with an incredible arc to it. And, we've seen these types of films do really well because they touch on a lot of issues. They have some great intellectual things that are going on inside the films that, the characters are wrestling with. We did another film called Case for Christ, Lee Strobel's story, where he was an atheist kind of coming to the Lord. Same thing. And I'm always fascinated myself watching these films. You sit there and you're watching, where is this character going to go? What's going to happen with this character? And sometimes you even know the ending because of the books and history and all that. But still, to see it played out on film in real life, it's hard to put into words. You just see that on the screen and you're captivated by it.
Yeah, that life change, right? I mean, there's always something about that. And I think that's why the Case for Christ resonated with so many people. People knew the story, but when you have somebody who's an ardent atheist and they become a believer, it's captivating. Max, in the case of C.S. Lewis, right now, I think about our world, and we're living in a world where the headlines keep telling us, atheism is, well, maybe not atheism per se, but non-belief or unaffiliation is on the rise. And with that going on, one of the things I'm curious about, without spoiling the whole story of C.S. Lewis and his conversion, what was sort of the one thing, or maybe the final straw, that convinced C.S. Lewis to go from that world of atheism into faith?
Well, he said his argument against God was the universe was so cruel and unjust. But then he asked himself, where do you get this notion of cruel and unjust? You call a line crooked because you have some idea of a straight line. What was he comparing this universe with when he called it cruel and unjust? Because he recognized that the world has no meaning. He'd never know it has no meaning. And yet we're meaning creatures. He said it as a child that no, he did not believe God existed, but he was angry at God for not existing. So, he lived in a realm of contradictions, but it was also, his life experience. He lost his mother to cancer when he was 9. He had a very strange relationship with his father, which he regretted all his life. He was in the trenches during World War I and saw the butchery of trench warfare. And he came to the conclusion either there's no God behind the universe, a God who's indifferent to good and evil, or worse, an evil God. And so that was his starting point. And then he moved from there. And part of it was the belief in his own thinking, that he recognized that thought was some sort of connection to something universal. Otherwise, it was, in his words, it's merely a product of physics and biochemistry, atoms colliding in sconce. And he just knew that not to be true.
Max, you've spent so much of your career studying and writing about and working with themes associated with C.S. Lewis and C.S. Lewis's works themselves, of course. I want to ask how it's maybe challenged or helped to shape your own faith over the years.
Yeah, well, the challenge we have of faith is, I believe, help thou my unbelief. And we get bombarded to unbelieve so much. And so what faith is the generosity which trusts, which is already known on reasonable grounds. And I think what Lewis does for me, and I think he does for a lot of people, hence his popularity, hence 8 out of the 10 most popular books of Christianity Today subscribers are Lewis books, is he deals as much as possible with objectivity. He says if it all hinges on who Jesus is. If his statement is false, Christianity is of no importance. If true, it is of infinite importance. What it can't be is moderately important. And he also says Christianity should be presented simply and solely because it is true. If it is untrue, no honest person will want to believe it. If it is true, every honest person will want to believe it. It all hinges on Jesus. And so when he puts it in such stark terms, and then he brings out the evidence, then your faith is strengthened. It is encouraged, and you're able to face all the challenges that we get on a day-to-day basis to our faith.
Michael, thinking about Pureflix, just to kind of pivot a little bit into this, because this particular film is a great example of the kinds of content that are present on Pureflix. You've got a world where there are a million streaming services right now, but Pureflix really is unique in a number of ways. Help people understand, those who maybe aren't familiar or maybe know Pureflix more for the theatricals and not the streaming service. Help people understand what the difference is.
Well, I think we have a unique service. We have the largest library of faith titles out there. We have faith and family titles. But I always say our content, we want you to come on the platform. And it's like any other streaming service. You can get it on any device, anywhere, anytime. We have thousands of titles. But we want people to come on, be inspired, be encouraged. And ultimately, when they watch something, we want them being drawn closer to God, not further away. And I think titles like what Max did here with Unelected Convert are a perfect example of that. What an incredible, powerful story that's being told. But it strengthens our faith. It teaches us that our faith is not blind, that it is based in fact and everything like that. So I think a viewer can come away, if you're a Christian, you're strengthened. If you're not a Christian, it makes you think, makes you question, makes you say, maybe there's something more here. So I think there's something for everybody, including the titles like this. It's coming out December 24th on our platform. We're super excited. Tons of Christmas titles. But we also have tons of stuff for the kids, too. So if you have kids at home and they're looking for something, we have great titles for the kids as well to watch. So I think it's, especially around the holiday time and everybody that might be watching this and going into the new year, it's cold outside, you want to sit down and watch something with the family. Well, let's watch something that draws us closer to God. And I think Pureflix can do that.
Max, as we round out this conversation, I just want to ask you, for the skeptic who may be sitting down to watch this film, for somebody who is maybe grew up around faith but has since drifted and isn't so sure about any of it, what would you say should be their takeaway? What would you like to be their takeaway after they watch the film?
I think the first thing is it's a quality film in terms of the cinematography, so that they can relax and watch a very strong script with a strong, beautiful backdrop to tell a very honest story. That we're not. It's not trying to. It's not trying to quote unquote sell, because people are so sensitive to that, as you know. It's trying to tell a story as cogently, as provocatively, and as profoundly as someone like C.S. Lewis only can. I mean, it's kind of just, it's the air he breathes. He's really focused on what he sees as truth. I may get this quote wrong, but it says, I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not because like the sun, I can see, because I can see it, I can see everything else. I slightly butchered it, but you get the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's powerful, and the film is incredible. It's The Most Reluctant Convert, coming to Pure Flix on December 24th. Max and Michael, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.